LFG. I'm young for my age. I like to speak the lingo of the kids these days. No, so you're just now going because you were out of power for quite a while, weren't you?
Yeah. There was a storm cell that ripped through in here. We
Oh
had
my.
hurricane level winds.
Ooh,
Power lines are torn down.
wow.
Yeah.
Jeez. Yeah. So this was, I'm sure, once in a millennium event, or once in a 5 centuries, or once since Moses, or what? Noah?
Oh, we
Since
get
Noah,
yeah.
you haven't had anything in Indiana like that, right?
Well, we get twisters, we get tornadoes,
Mm-hmm.
but those only hit the poor parts,
Mm-hmm.
the valleys, the long flat valleys. But we do
Mm-hmm.
occasionally get like flooding and storms like that. But yeah, this was the worst we've seen, especially with the winds.
And what are you doing right now, Michael Weimer, to transform the global economy into a one government communist dictatorship?
Yeah, exactly. That's the
To
only
to to
solution.
overcome the cause
Mhm.
of what took out your power, which is climate change. What are you doing?
Uh-huh.
I mean, at least I hope you're feeling real bad
Mhm.
about something, because you did some shit today. You did
Yeah.
some shit today against the climate, and you know it. And right now,
I
I
was
mean,
I idling my car for hours to charge my phone.
look at
Things
what
like
we're
that.
doing
Yeah.
now. Do you
Yeah.
think where do you think this energy comes from? Like,
Uh-huh.
um, you know where it comes from? It comes
Mhm.
from the corpses of our dead grandchildren.
Well, the best thing that's ever been written about energy ever was George Orwell's Road to Wigan Pier. And I think
Mm-hmm.
the end of the first half of that, he goes on for a couple paragraphs saying, no matter what you want from the revolution, no matter what you want for progress in society, if you want
Mm-hmm.
society to function at all, you're going to need children and minds digging up that coal. And that's going to happen regardless. It's going to be a constant throughout history. If you need energy, you need little kids digging up coal.
Or or doing crypto mining,
Yeah.
which is the same thing. Isn't that the same thing now?
Uh-huh.
They're sitting in a room full of servers,
Mhm.
or I don't know what they do. How do you
Mhm.
crypto mine?
Oh,
You sit like everybody else. You sit in front of a screen all day long,
yeah.
typing furiously. That's what
Mhm.
everyone does now. No, so yeah, no, I mean, that's right. I mean, so you're not mining any. The kids aren't in the mine shafts anymore,
Mhm.
but they're in new mine shafts,
Mhm. Well, I mean,
which
literally with the cobalt mines in Africa and for the batteries that are in your phones, that's still happening. And yeah, we're still,
oh
yeah.
oh yes, there is still black labor in the
Mhm.
world. A need for it, for sure. Extremely cheap black labor is still there's still a market for sure. Especially where all those things are underground. Yeah, the whole neo-colonial structure in Africa. A lot of it is the French who exerted this sort of wild. People don't even talk about this. I mean, and I'm not an expert, but I mean, just wild control of the currency still in their former colonies, which effectively, of course, means they control at least the macro economy. I mean, it's just, and then this basically child slavery in these disgusting, horrific mines across Africa to fuel, everybody's cell phones in Paris or whatever it is. Yeah, I mean, it's something else. But back to climate change,
Mhm.
because I don't know if we've really talked about it much, have we,
We've always
on
just
here?
dismissed it in a kind of juvenile way.
Oh, really?
I mean, I have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. Well, I'm not even sure we've done that, have we?
Uh-huh.
But yeah, no, I mean, let's do that right now, because, this is the place where you come for in-depth analysis of Black music, um, pro-Palestine solidarity movement, um, pro-January 6th, free them all right now movement. This is the nexus of all those things. There's no other place you can find it.
Mhm.
And a place where at least yours truly, and I hope in not a juvenile way. Now it's 30 years, almost 30, 25 years since they scared me. And so 25 years of like waiting for the apocalypse. Yeah, I'm gonna say, as I've said for many years now, it's basically essentially a hoax, a fraud, and it is fundamentally, I believe, and gosh, do I know this because I grew up around exactly the people who are perpetrating this fraud. It is exactly what the most redneck, dumb shit, MAGA, Oklahoma truck driver dude thinks it is, which is a front for communism. You know, and you needn't go no further than someone who very recently I'm like not disgusted by as much simply because she's been good on Palestine, but Naomi Klein. I mean, this is this is why she's beautiful and should be, I mean, as a person. You need to make sure everyone knows about Naomi Klein. Everyone needs to read Naomi Klein. Isn't she the most famous, influential climate change activist in the world? I believe so, right? Great. We want that. Read what she has said. She has said in multiple occasions in print and in interviews that she was a socialist originally, passionately, for many years in her early adulthood, just like I was. And she and I were socialists at the same time. I in New York, and I think she was in Toronto. And we were in sort of similar, I didn't know her at all, but I mean, we were sort of similar political circles, so I know exactly that crew. DSA, Democratic Socialists of America, Bernie Sanders stuff, you know, Cornel West, all those, Barbara Ehrenreich, who now are extremely influential in American politics. But anyway, so Naomi Klein was a socialist committed to class struggle, material conditions, the betterment of the material conditions of the working class, economic analysis, economics being paramount in your analysis, right? And completely uninterested in environmentalism, which they saw as sort of this odd, kooky, fringy, marginal issue, because if you stopped cutting down the trees and make the air clean, the working class is still the working class and the capitalists still own the means of production. So they were like not so into it until, and this is Naomi Klein talking. She says, and I love her for this. Straight up, she said, at a certain point when climate change became a large issue, I began to pay attention and I began to care, she says, about the climate, because I saw it as an opportunity to advance socialist politics. Because the argument became very clear before us that if, in fact, it's not just a question of losing some trees over here, or maybe Pittsburgh has some dirty air for a while, but like if everybody on the planet dies from this environmental degradation that we are conjuring up here, then, and this is true, this is Thad Russell not talking, I mean, that if that were true, if climate change actually did threaten the species the way that they talk about, that we were all going to be underwater by 2050, by the way, that was the prediction not long ago. This lost me lifelong friends. And when I said, guys, I just don't know about that one, it seems a little far-fetched. It's going to be, San Francisco is going to be underwater in 2050. Underwater, like the damn whole city, practically, they said. Yeah, it's the, what do they call it? The watermelon, not for Palestine. The watermelon, the original use of watermelon as a metaphor for a politics, a left-wing politics, I think is in reference to this: red on the inside, green on the outside. Naomi Klein said, oh, I was going to say, so yeah, we need one. We would. I mean, even me, Mr. whatever I am, satanic anarchist, whatever, you know, like even me, if that were the case, I would say, no, unfortunately, really unfortunately, but I don't see any other way around this. We got to have some kind of like global coordination thing, which probably has to be some fucking government. So all they had to do was convince, you know, the housewives who watch MSNBC and CNN that this is on, that we're going to be underwater in now, what is it, 26 years? This shit is hilarious at this point. 26 years, unless we convert the global economy to communism under one government, which, by the way, they've never really spelled out where that government would be. The capital of it, is that going to be DC or is it going to be Beijing? Because a lot of them have some of the most famous ones. What's his face? Like the granddaddy of the climate change activist movement, James, the scientist, James Hansen. He straight up said to, I think in Congress, or he wrote articles. This is all public. This is all them stating. He said we should adopt the Chinese economic model to combat climate change. Command and control, centralized economy. Like, boom. I'm okay. Let's go. Thank you. I mean, so thank you, the heads of the climate change activist movement. Right, Brussels. Thank you. Exactly. That would be the logical, I suppose. Right, and especially now that the Green Party in Germany, who my friends, so I used to be very close with the radical wing of the environmentalist movement. It used to be called Deep Ecology. Murray Bookchin was the philosophical guru. And this is important because they ended up becoming Antifa in the Northwest and then becoming a major wing in the environmentalist movement and sort of like infecting, I guess you could say, a lot of thinking, even in like the Sierra Club and other mainstream environmentalist movement. This is a real it's a primitivist communism, which is that they think that basically all material benefits and goods for human beings are destructive, and so that should be either severely limited or completely eliminated. So it's a deeply ascetic, puritanical, very pure left-wing movement. And that's where she comes from. She comes from the sort of merger of those two things, of that sort of like hard left, deep ecology movement, which again is really just it's a primitivist communism, and the DSA, sort of democratic socialist, social democrat, socialist. I mean, it's all, again, it just sort of blurs together. The green and the red run together. What is it, purple now? Anyway, that's who they are. And because because I was quite literally born and raised among all of those people for the first 30 years of my life, that's who I was with. That's who I was talking to every day. I know them. I could see it immediately, almost immediately. It took me like a year. I was scared, and there was the Time magazine, I think it was, cover story about climate change in the late 90s. I think it was 98 or 99. And I remember that scaring the shit out of me because they just, because I didn't know anything at that point. It was a very new idea. And the article was, successful in making me think, oh my God, we're going to drown. And then I saw An Inconvenient Truth by Gore, I think shortly after that, whenever that movie came out.
That was like 2004. That was like,
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, then I was a little scared for a while though, but I remember seeing that movie. I saw it at the Angelica in Manhattan, downtown Manhattan. Mm-hmm. And I remember just thinking, and I'd walked in there sort of open-minded about it. And I just remember thinking about halfway through when he's showing like a stream, just water like flowing in a stream, mm-hmm. close up of water. And he starts doing this voiceover about the future. And it's like an apocalyptic vision. It's like sort of millenarian. I was like, oh, damn. Brother is manipulating the shit out of us.
Oh, yeah. Well, he took pictures of like glaciers during the summer and compared them to like glaciers during the winter from 40 years ago.
Oh.
Like, yeah.
And the thing is, that's just the beginning of all the fucking hoaxes and frauds and falsehoods. And I mean, there's some amazing lists online of all the, going back to the 70s, of climate change, predictions that are now farcical, but that at the time everybody was screaming about. I mean, I'm telling you, I lost my friends. Oh, well, the deep ecologists from college, when on Facebook, like maybe 10 years ago, these were my best friends. And I said, simply, I said, do you guys really think we're going to be underwater in 2050? Doesn't that seem a little far-fetched given that nothing's underwater so far? And they couldn't stand it. I mean, it's now a central, because climate change, and then they made it about race too. And they're working on gender as well, like how climate is really about race. Maybe people have seen this, right? Because people of color, communities of color, are disproportionately affected by environmental degradation, et cetera, and climate change, which is not even, I don't know, demonstrate. And in some cases it is, sure, but that really is just poor people. Poor people. White people have been wiped out by toxic spills too. Look at the Love Canal, I think it was, in upstate New York. It was like a white working class community. Disgusting, horrific thing. But anyway, so because they saw that climate change, if they can convince everybody, was an existential threat to the species. And I laugh now because to me it's just so absurd at this point. We're now 2024 and I've been hearing this shit for 25 years, and still there is zero evidence to me of anything that I should worry about in climate change. We can talk about that in detail because I've actually read the studies, and it's wild. I mean, the official like UN sanctioned studies like say year after year, there's a few more storms, but it's not because of climate change. I'm like, okay. Because it's such a perfect vehicle, an intersectional vehicle for the left, because it hits all of their causes simultaneously, or they made it that way, right? It is now I think it's the central component of the left-wing American religion. Meaning that prior to this era, like up until the 90s, if you were, it was all about class, basically. Like you had to if you were like a serious Marxist socialist lefty, you had to be about class. You had to think class was paramount, the most important thing. And then especially like labor union struggles, that was always like the major cause. And if you weren't into that, you weren't one of us. You weren't a socialist. You weren't a lefty. And now I've noticed, I mean, I think it's climate change is the most sacred component of the contemporary American left-wing movement, because it's so perfect for them. Yeah, it's intersectional. It manages to make I'm going to say Rousseauvian egalitarianism necessary was the word I was going to use. It makes those things urgent. It makes egalitarianism urgent and necessary in response to every social issue, every major social issue. Because if it were true that we're all going to drown in 26 years, then I'd at least listen to one world government arguments, and it would be, but I would say like, oh shit, we're going to need socialism, unfortunately. And I've said this before about COVID. That's where the right has really fucked up on this, because, the US government is actively, and we need to start talking about this again, everybody. Gaza kind of pushed it away. Like the US government is still operating dozens of bioweapons labs all over the world as we speak. And so it easily could be, there could be another leak that really will be deadly, where we really will see grandma dying but our kids dying, so if the climate change people are right, and thank God, I don't think they are. Yeah, I mean, again, it's a beautiful argument, so compelling for socialism, for global centralized. That's the worst part of it. Because there is a tradition on the left that I still love, which is decentralized socialism. It's sometimes called council communism. There is the little wing of the socialist movement in Britain, especially, and some of the United States, wanted, like, they just called for like decentralized communities that were each individually was collectivists in terms of its economics, but there was no central authority governing them, which I think is a really cool idea even. But no, these people are the opposite of that. They're on the other wing. They're on the other end of the spectrum. In socialism, there is a decentralist, anti-authoritarian, I would say libertarian socialist tradition, which I just spelled out, council communism. And on the other end of that, on the other end of the spectrum, is stuff like Mao and Stalin. And further, all the way at the end, past Mao and Stalin, I'm saying here, because did Mao and Stalin call for one world government run by them? Not really. Not really. But these people say it all the time. They go to Congress and they talk about it, and they write op-eds in the New York Times calling for it. They want one government controlling the frickin' global economy, because that, of course, to them is the source of climate change, is the economy in all the countries. So every single economic transaction in their world, everybody think about this, every single economic transaction and more must be, to save us all, must be regulated tightly by a central governing authority. Like, that's inescapable. And like, go read their literature. Go read Naomi Klein. This is what they talk about all the time. And they have actual, the squad in Congress, that's who they are. The Green New Deal, that's the first step toward a global central. Well, it's the same thing, because if the United States adopts something, guess what happens next? Everybody falls in line. That is, if the US empire stays erect, so to speak. But these a couple other things about climate change, like, that I think people, if they're looking for quick ways to get to the heart of this, or at least to see how hollow these claims are. I spent a long time just reading to the bottom and then fact checking all of the major New York Times articles, feature pieces about this or that atoll or island in the Pacific or in the Indian Ocean that will soon be underwater because of climate change. And I would read all the way through, and it'd be about how, like, yeah, there's like some flooding that hasn't happened before in this island somewhere. And yeah, there was like some, like, marshes were extending more than they should have, etc. And I was like, oh, wow, this does look kind of, maybe they're right. Maybe there is some climate change. Oh, shit. And then you get like it, when every single case, everybody go look at every one of those goddamn, because the Times would have one of these feature pieces like almost weekly about some place in the world. Sometimes it'd be in Alaska, some super remote place that they said was going to be underwater soon because of climate change. And then you get about halfway through the article and it says in every single case, oh, after World War II, there was an engineering project, an irrigation engineering project that built underwater canals that have affected the tides and increased had nothing to do with climate change at all. Like, they knew it was man-made what was happening. Like, this stuff is so fraudulent, but it's actually, and I'll give them credit for the time. They did always put that in the article. They didn't like ignore it, but it would be buried. It'd be like in the 20th paragraph. Just amazing. And everybody just reads that article and just comes away thinking, oh my God, that island's going to be underwater because of climate change. When it says right there in the article itself, no, what's been happening, everything that this article is talking about, this water rising on this island in the Pacific somewhere, is because of this stupid engineering project. Oh God. Okay.
Yeah. I think
so. I guess let's see. And then yeah, so sort of the motivation behind the major thinkers now. Naomi Klein, James, his name again? Harmon? No.
Hansen.
Anyway, that guy.
Hansen.
They've admitted it. They want a Chinese global communist CCP model for the world. You see the way in which the media, and I'm talking about the New York Times, the smart media, traffics the fraud through these headlines that are not supported by the actual evidence in the article. And they do this over and over. And go look at any one of these scare climate change pieces, including on CNN, all the major liberal media. They do this all the time, talk about some place that's threatened by climate change. And in every single goddamn case, I'm telling you, try it. Try to find one that's actually legit. In every single case, it turns out it really has nothing to do with climate change. So by their own admission, when you read through the article, it's just amazing. So, I mean, it's just, and then, okay. And then, so people might say, okay, that's like the fantasy of the far left. True. The Naomi Kleins, far left. So they're into the communism of it. Sure. That's why climate change is important as an idea, as a fraud to combat. And so, but then you're like, well, but there's never really going to be a communist revolution. There's never going to be like a global government. Probably not. But you do also always want to be on guard against that, don't you? But then again, there's another, not just threat. It's happened. It's been happening for decades at this point. It is, along with LGBTQ plus IA blobbity rights, climate change has been one of the major vehicles or justifications for the extension of the American empire. So, you know, look there. They're always pushing it, man. The State Department and the White House are always talking about climate change here, there, and the need, therefore, to reform the economies of such and such a country. And if they do that, they'll get foreign aid from us. Mm-hmm. And if not, we might have to kill their children. So there you go. That's my take on climate change.
I was going to say, even if climate change was real.
You're muted.
I am? Test. Check. Am I muted? Really? Check.
Uh-oh. Climate change took out your audio.
Check. Can you hear me now?
I can't hear you. I hope I'm the only one who can't hear him. Wait, am I the only one who can't hear you?
Check.
That's funny.
Can you hear me? Check. Audience can hear me. Can you hear me, Thad?
Oh.
I think they could have heard me the whole time. Shoot. Yeah.
Why can't I hear anything? Why? It wouldn't be unreported without technical issues, guys. Why can't I hear you, Michael?
I don't know.
Audio.
Check. Still in.
Okay.
They can still hear me.
Now I can. Okay, I don't know.
You got me?
StreamYard, baby. I don't know. Okay, I'm back. I hear you.
Okay. Even if climate change was real.
The song is brought to you by Kelsey and Presley and StreamYard support. Have a great show.
Kelsey and Presley. I got really nervous there. I thought it was some other video that was playing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You know, so anyway.
Yeah. Well, ever since the Elon turned Twitter into X, I used to have to go to twittervideodownloader.com, and I still do when I download Twitter videos, but I always want to type in xvideodownloader.com now. Totally different website.
Oh,
yes.
I said that was the only, I still think about this all the time. Is it the dumbest rebranding ever?
Yeah.
Except for the fact, to me, the only redeeming part of it is that it does look like a cheap, lowbrow porn site logo. Mm-hmm. So it makes all of Twitter suddenly look like a lowbrow porn site, which is cool.
Which it is, because if you look at all the bots under every post, it pretty much is that now.
Again, the only redeeming thing about Twitter, yes, is that there's like random porn popping up. Even no matter what you do, you'll like see somebody fucking suddenly on your timeline. It's kind of wild. Which is just, I'm like, on planes, it's rough. That's when you're like on your phone, you're about to take off, you're scrolling Twitter, and all of a sudden you see like ass fucking.
Yeah.
And grandma sitting next to you, and then her grandchild who's 3 years old sitting next to her, mom's on the other side.
And then you have to say, no, I'm a serious journalist.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, that would take some explaining. I mean, there are serious journalists who work in porn. Okay. No Jumper is one of the biggest podcasts, and I think quite a good podcast. And it's done by, what's his name? Adam, whatever.
22.
Right. Good podcast. Every time I watch it, I learn a lot. It's not always just about porn, but like he's in porn. He's got porn stars on there.
No, he's good at getting the SoundCloud generation of rappers out into the public and hearing what they had to say.
Yeah.
It was like, it reminded me of the 90s for a little bit, of like the zines that would interview rappers, and it felt real raw at the beginning.
That's where the soundtrack for Unregistered came from. The SoundCloud rappers culture. No, I did. I found it on SoundCloud. All right.
Well, okay, back to climate change.
Yes.
If it were real, I still don't think communism would be the answer. I think communism is ontologically evil and leads to starvation and genocide every time it's tried. And that nobody has a better interest in protecting the resources and the function of this planet than capital. That's something I think, that like beachfront property would want to be protected, that the economy would want to be up and running and working.
Thank you, Murray Rothbard.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of sucks, that libertarian arguments like that, that's the response they get these days, even though they're still pretty damn good. Like, I don't think they've been overturned at all. But it is, even I like listen to that. I'm like, okay, I've heard this shit before.
Yeah.
It's probably right though. Yeah. I don't know. It'd be tough though.
But it's like every time there's an emergency, this was big with COVID. Every time there's an emergency, there's all these think pieces that are written up that's like, thank God the libertarians aren't in charge. And then there's a huge, massive overreaction that transfers wealth from the bottom to the top. And it's seen as absolutely necessary and the only thing that will stop this problem. And then 5-10 years later, they're like, well, okay, I guess we did overreact and the libertarians were right the whole time.
No, I know.
Yeah,
I know. No, as I've said, on questions of economics and the state, I'm straight up Ron Paul. Like, I don't think there's any difference between me and him on like, if I were a Congress person, my voting record, I think, would be identical to his, but there's just so much more to politics and life. And he and I differ on a lot of other stuff, but on policy, government, the state, economics, ANCAP all day. I just haven't heard a better argument ever. And I started out a Marxist, I started out on the left, like critiquing those arguments all the time. And then when I finally encountered them and really dealt with them when I was in my 30s or 40s, even, 40s, really, I was like, oh shit, these guys are right. And it's also a much better way to live too, because it's a way of it. You're not always thinking, ooh, they're gross. They bought a big car. They shouldn't buy a big car. Oh, I shouldn't buy a big car. I shouldn't have air conditioning. That's really bad for the planet and it's bad for the workers. And you're always a school marm when you're a socialist. You have to be. You have to be. Because that's what it's about. It's about self-policing and policing others in the service of a collectivized economy. I mean, that's what it's about, guys. That's socialism. That's why that's the social part. You all
making all the right sacrifices, and that billionaire over there is out having fun. Those stupid rednecks are still driving their cars. And here I am doing the right thing, and I'm miserable, and it breeds all this resentment to pretty much everybody around you. It's
right. Yeah, it's just this horrific puritanical asceticism that I talked about earlier that it's always been central in the left, and the environmentalist left, like the Naomi Kleins, that's their main thing. They love the asceticism. They just can't stand when people go shopping. Drives them bananas to see people shopping and buying things. Really, it just like Black Friday to them is the saddest day of the year. That's when the working class has fully capitulated. They think, really, it's just they try to. Well, I've been around socialists on Black Friday, and it's hilarious. It's like when you're driving around on Black Friday, and you drive by a mall with socialists in your car, like they just look away. It's like you're driving by a big car accident for them. They just, oh my God, I can't. Oh my God, the working class. What are they doing in Walmart? They're always so disappointed by the people they claim to represent. Really something. Socialists, the tribunes of the working class. Imagine that in America. What a position to be in. I used to be one of these idiots, thinking like, what American workers, whatever that is, by the way, should want and need. Oh gosh, the paternalism is off the charts. But it's also just so funny because 99+% of the American working class has zero interest in anything political, really, and certainly anything that's about socialism. And what are they overwhelmingly really, really interested in? The fruits of capitalism. They love watching TikTok videos. They love going to NFL games. They love porn. They love hamburgers. I mean, it's so funny. And these socialists just keep going, pretending like they represent, I don't even know, it's in their mind, it's all fantasy, like factory workers who don't even exist anymore in America. That's in their fantasy, though. When they say working class, I'm like, what exactly is that now?
Yeah, it's some vague future fantasy class that will happen after the revolution, or like,
well, yeah. I mean, I do think there is a good definition of that, a Marxist one, which I think is right, which is that it's if you must work for a living to survive, if you must work to survive, you're working class. I think that's fine. In other words, you don't possess enough productive capital to live on. I think that's a pretty good divider, and it doesn't mean anything politically. You can still be a total libertarian ANCAP and have that analysis, by the way. I think there's nothing inconsistent with that and an ANCAP analysis. But so, I mean, that's fine when they talk about those people, and a lot of those people work on screens, people who must work for a living. But anyway, yeah, sorry. I just, I've been, and now with the Palestine movement, I've been reacquainted with my old friends.
Oh, dude, that's the worst part about Twitter right now is like, ever since I've been liking certain posts that I agree with on foreign policy, all these commies are invading my feed. And I'm like, I thought we got rid of you. Like, I thought you guys were done with, but apparently you guys still believe in communism.
Right. So this is the only show where we are for free Palestine. And we also want to throw commies out of helicopters.
Yeah. I'm well, okay. But
what do you answer? You answer Palestine?
I'm anti-Israel. I don't really care about Palestine.
You hate you just fucking love killing brown babies. Like you just can't get enough. You would just like walk around stabbing little brown infants, wouldn't you? Just stabbing them in the head.
If given the opportunity, yeah. You
just like, can't get enough of that. You're like Douglas Murray. Just more kill the brown. That guy, I think he's a vampire.
Did you see the debate? The Munk debate? Yeah.
Stunning. I've been waiting to comment until it's publicly released, until the Munk debate.
You can pirate it, but yeah, I mean,
I know, but I want everyone to have seen it when I start talking. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, yeah, let's talk about that. Like, everyone should go watch it right away. But how many babies do you want to kill before we move on?
Well, I kind of want like there to be like, I want there to be like a breeding center where new babies are produced, so I can kill them after I've killed all of them. That's the only thing that motivates me is the death of babies, especially ones that don't look like me.
Michael, do you want to tell the audience about the history of your state?
It's,
where you grew up, and look at your color. Okay, you're in the state where not very long ago, the Ku Klux Klan was the dominant political faction in the state government. So listen, buddy, we know where you're coming from. No, you take the right position.
Yeah.
On that, by the way, we've talked about this before. But anyway, let's talk about. Yeah, we're hella metal.
Okay. Before
Frankenstein WT.
Yeah. Before we get there, real quick, $5 super chat from Handyman. They used to say that hairspray would kill us with the ozone in the 80s.
Wait a minute. He looks working class. He's holding a hammer.
Yeah.
There you go. You should listen to Marxists. They know what you need. Where were we? I was going to say something. Oh no, the debate, Douglas Murray. Okay, yes, everyone go watch that. If it gets, what's been happening is someone pirates it, puts it on YouTube illegally or against copyright, and it'll stay up for a few days, and then the Munk debates will find it and get it taken down, and then someone else will put it up. So you got to look around on YouTube, but
Twitter,
eventually
X will keep it up for longer. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah. Eventually the Munk debates, I don't know when, but I think pretty soon they'll release it publicly and everybody can watch it. Anyway, it's a crucial debate because it's kind of, you've got heavyweights pretty much on both sides. I mean, you know, I was pretty happy with who they selected. So you had Mehdi Hassan, who's shitty on a lot of stuff, but he's been pretty outstanding. He's very, very good at debating and very, very smart. And so he's just a great attack dog, and he's been awesome on Palestine. And then Gideon Levy, who's quite good. He veered a little bit into sort of moralism, high moralism at moments. It's an Israeli thing.
Yeah. It was the one irritating Israeli, the one screeching, moralizing, irritating Israeli voice was on the pro-Palestine side this time.
I mean, it's really funny. Yeah. It's even the ones who are anti-Zionists have that thing, you know, where they kind of have this, like, I mean, this is not what he was saying, but it's the same kind of emotional, rhetorical move of suddenly getting swelled up with the Holocaust, you know, and then starting to bellow about whatever it is you're trying to make a point about. And that he was doing it on the side of Palestine, but still it was just sort of, it didn't work because it was sort of too, again, demagogic. And it sounded like some, you know, Holocaust or argument.
Yeah.
But anyway, he's still quite good. And the great thing is he's an Israeli Jew and an anti-Zionist. So, I mean, as legit as can be. And then on the other side, you know, Douglas Murray is probably is. I mean, it's kind of amazing. This is how vacuous that side is, I think, intellectually. I've been shocked at how just empty the pro-Israel arguments have been. They just have nothing. And I've been scouring. I've been listening to everything. I listen to Israeli podcasts. I listen to the Dan Senor's Call Me Back thing, which is like, that's where all the Zionists hang out. I've listened to every episode for like a month, and Noam Dworman's his podcast, which I was on before October 7th. He also does the same. He has like the best of the Zionist intellectuals, these guys, and I just haven't heard anything. Anyway, so Douglas Murray, and then this British Jewish woman, I forget her name. She's quite smart. She's like a lawyer, international lawyer, I guess. Quite smart, quite good at the craft of debating, you know, being both of them Oxbridge trained. You learn how to debate. I spent a year in the British university system, and you are forced to speak publicly all the time. It's scary as shit, but it's really good training. So these people, that's why the Brits are really, and they're also masters of the language in ways that Americans aren't. So they had that on their side. I would say that's where Douglas Murray and whatever her name was.
Natasha Hausdorff,
who I believe she said her parents were one of the original Zionists. I think they were like settled there in the 1920s or something like that. But she was born and raised in London, like so many Israelis, has a British accent. Oh, the indigenous people who look like me speak with a Shakespearean accent, and they claim to be from Palestine. Anyway, so I don't know what to say because it's I think it was an hour and a half, and to me, almost every second of it was a complete demolition of Douglas Murray and Natasha, whatever her name is, side, the Zionist side. I mean, just that I thought Mehdi Hassan and Gideon Levy just wiped them off the map, and that basically everything that Douglas Murray said was a non sequitur. Like, it was irrelevant to the question. And by the way, I forgot to mention this. The question of the debate is,
yeah,
and this is just outrageous that this is even a question in a debate. It's outrageous. Like, this is not a question. Is anti-Zionism anti-Semitism? And that's how it was phrased too.
Yeah.
Meaning absolutely equivalent. Are those the same things? I'm like, are you serious? Are you
me,
serious?
To me, that question isn't even relevant to the world stage right now. To me, like, that question, like, I don't even care. Like, call it whatever you want. That doesn't, like, oh my God, people who don't like Zionism don't like Jews. Fine. Does that completely negate what's happening there right now? Like, does that completely negate the facts on the ground of the actual conflict?
Well, no, you can't. No, you can't concede this, because it means you can't criticize Israel ever. Right?
Well, no,
that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to
just say, I mean, I don't care. Like, you could say I'm an American and I have the right to hate people for who they are. I have the right to all my speech, and I can ground my criticism in whatever I want it to, and your personal attacks aren't going to intimidate me. Like, we spent all this time saying, like, finally defeating the anti-racists by saying, you know what, I might be racist, so what? Let's actually talk about my arguments. And now here we are talking about anti-racism again.
Again, you come in at a very elevated level. I don't know if you know that, but you're very, very above the rest of us with these swooping in analyses. No, that's good, man. Yeah. That was your Pomo, and I'm very modernist on that. You're all about fucking language. Who cares? Get over it. And I'm like, no, dude. It's, if they define it in a certain way, we're locked into that definition forever. It'll be a prison. And you're like, hey, man, get over it. We're in the post era where words are what? Fungible, fluid. They come and go. They shift. Concepts again get bigger, larger, drift around, change all the time. So chill, dude. You know, Derrida was right. Derrida was down. Okay. I hope that didn't lose anybody.
The debate was.
No, but wait.
Okay.
I mean, hold on. Let's clarify this first in my mind, because I'm not sure. What were you arguing against there?
Oh, that the question is anti-Zionism, anti-Semitism isn't even relevant to what's happening. Correct. Like, it's a total diversion from the actual conversation, like what's actually happening. Like, there's a land dispute happening right now, and criticizing that, like, the motivations behind criticizing that doesn't make the criticisms irrelevant. I don't think being motivated by hate. I mean, I think hate is bad, but I don't think being motivated by hate automatically negates your argument.
You can't allow them to equate anti-Semitism with anti-Zionism, though, right? I mean, because that unfortunately in our culture discredits it. Well, and makes you can't, like, and it's one step from there to making it illegal, right? Which is what they're literally trying to do, and it is illegal in Europe, so that's not even far-fetched. Like, that's where they're going for. They're trying to make it actually illegal rather than just like you lose your funding if you say that on a college campus.
Yeah, but you have to reject the hypothesis completely outright. That you have to go above it, and you have to say that we don't ban hate speech, and that, like, we have to take hate seriously. That we can't just ban things we don't like, and that we can't dismiss ideas because they're rooted in this thing called hate. That we can't just put this label on something and completely dismiss arguments. Like, you're ceding that ground if you think that question is important. Like, if anti-Zionism were anti-Semitism, then we could ban it, then we could dismiss it. I don't care. It's a bullying tactic. Like, your bullying tactics are not going to intimidate me. If you are going to call me low ground, I'm going to take that low ground. I don't care. Like,
I see.
This is America. You have the right, and any free society, you should have the right to,
Okay, so then would the argument be like this? Would it be, sure, I'm anti-Semitic if being opposed to killing 100 children a day in the service of an ethno-state is anti-Semitic? Yes, I'm anti-Semitic. Is that how it would go? Or
yeah, pretty much. Like if Israel is going to give me the definition of anti-Semitism, and the definition of anti-Semitism includes criticizing criticizing the project of colonizing Palestine, then I'm an anti-Semite. Fine, call me an anti-Semite. I'm still going to criticize you. Like I don't care. Like what you.
That's
call
not
me.
bad. Yeah, I like that. I might even rock that on Twitter at some point. Yeah, I mean, if calling Israel an apartheid ethno-state, a colonial settler colonial apartheid ethno-state, which it obviously is, and the Zionists them fucking selves said so. Yeah, everybody. By the way, my God, they said it themselves. The major Zionists said that. If that's what it is, if that's being anti-Semitic to say that about Israel, then I'm anti-Semitic. Sure. Okay.
And then it's imperative on Jews themselves to change the definition of what it means to be Jewish in order for there to be less anti-Semites in the world. Like the definition of being Jewish and Semitic has to not include the Israel project if you want there to be like less than 7 billion anti-Semites or whatever.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. No, it's the great anti-Semitism factory is Israel and Zionism. Yeah. That's what's producing anti-Semitism like in buckets every day, because that fucking state is out there talking about how they represent all Jews. No, thanks. Thanks a lot. No, you don't. But thanks for saying that to everybody while you're killing children all the time. Wow. That's what Jews do, huh? Like, as I've said here and I've said elsewhere, it's the most incredible blood libel against Jews I could ever have imagined. Like a state that says it serves and represents all of us, and it goes and massacres 15, 20,000 children in service of an apartheid ethno-state. And then it says, yeah, we're doing it for the Jews. Where the Jews do that. This is what Jews do. Jews kill a bunch of children.
Yeah.
Like apartheid. Thanks, guys. My son now, who's like very Jewish. I mean, ethnically. I mean, like, and at a college campus, by the way. Guess what? Has never happened to him. Anything.
Yeah.
Anything, of course. But anyway, yeah, it's like, oh, but you put this label on us now that idiots, it's funny, like actual anti-Zionists are the people who know damn well not to conflate Judaism and Zionism. They're because they're sophisticated political people. They know that there's a huge difference. They know that the Zionists themselves laid out the differences. They know that there's many, many Jews over a century who have been anti-Zionists. No, it's the dummies, it's the dummy Americans who are like, have a very shallow understanding of politics, etc. And they have probably hate Muslims and yada, yada, whatever. But it's those people who could absolutely think, or they don't hate Muslims, but dumb Americans could absolutely think, oh yeah, all Jews are like that. All Jews like want to fucking mow down children, like, and women, I mean, that's what they want to do, huh? Oh, they want to have checkpoints in the ghettos for their brown population. That's what Jews do, huh? Cool. Okay.
Well, I mean, more and more officially, that's becoming the official line. Like Congress is pushing that definition into existence. Like more and more, that's becoming the accepted wide standard narrative definition. And so if that's the case, that's what we are now.
Wow.
It was like COVID. Like if somebody saw me without a mask outside and said, hey, are you trying to kill grandma? I'd say, yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to kill my grandmother right now.
Right.
Like,
and they talk about the blood libel, right?
Yeah. Well, this is the
great Zionism is the greatest blood libel against Jews I've ever conceived of. Like this is like, you're kidding. Like that's what Jews do, huh? Okay, that's talk about stereotype and the lying, the mendacity of the Israeli government's like so outlandish that it's just, again, that's another trope, Jewish good old anti-Semitic trope about the Jews being, conniving and manipulative. That's the IDF. That's the Israeli government. Like always, constantly, they're just a walking stereotype, a walking killing stereotype.
But the thing is, just never capitulate to name calling and bullying. Like,
yeah,
like that's so obviously it's the most anti-intellectual thing, and to have like an Oxford style debate centered around what kind of name we're going to call you. Like we're going to reduce your actual intellectual arguments to nothing but name calling. That's what this debate. That's what the proposition was.
Maybe
so you just can't. Yeah, you can't accept that hypothesis. You can't play in those terms.
One of the most stunning moments in it, and I'm still like wrestling with how on earth she thought it was a good idea to say this and people applauded for it. And I'm like, do y'all just hear what she said? The Natasha Hounsdorf, whatever. She says at one point that anti-Zion, what did she say? Rapists shouldn't get to define what rape is.
Yeah, misogynists shouldn't get to define what misogyny is.
And therefore anti-Zionists shouldn't get to define what anti-Zionism is.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? And no one, even Mehdi Hassan and Gideon Levy didn't challenge her on that, which was very bizarre. But yeah, so I mean,
here's the thing though, they won the debate. Douglas Murray and Natasha, by the rules of an Oxford debate, won the debate.
Wow.
And it's well, it's because feelings don't care about your facts. That's what it boiled down to.
I want to talk about that. So I think when it started, 61% of the audience agreed that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. And that just blew me out of my chair. That like an educated, intelligent, relatively politically sophisticated audience, that's who goes to the Munk debates, right? These aren't idiots. They probably all went to college, right? Took political science classes. That those 61% of that population in Toronto, very cosmopolitan, sophisticated city, 61% of those people think that we're done. And then it increased. I mean, this was just like mind-blowing. I think it went to 68% after the debate. They voted and more. So they were unconvinced, or they were convinced by frickin' Douglas Murray and his empty arguments throughout. I mean, absolutely empty. They were unreal. But wait, okay. So, but there's a guess what though?
Yeah.
Munk. Do you know who Munk was?
Yeah, he was a Zionist. Yeah.
I think it's Peter Munk.
Yeah. The Intelligence Square debate, there was like an Intelligence Square debate like 5 years ago or something that had the exact same proposition and it's pretty much the exact same debaters. Right. And the other side won. But this institution also they were using their definitions in the debate itself of what anti-Semitism is and what Zionism is.
Right.
So if you follow the definitions that you have to agree to, then in that word game, it kind of works out that way, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And they sort of just elided the whole question of like where this Jewish homeland would be located. Because if they had chosen Tierra del Fuego, which at one point they were considering in the 1880s, okay, maybe even then there would probably be some displacement of natives, and who, if they didn't want to be displaced, you would have to war with them, whatever. But it used to be a lot less. But no, they skip over that part, like that there were 500,000 people there who didn't want to go, and that's it. I mean, it's amazingly simple, actually. That's really all it's about. The Zionists said there's an indigenous. This is a colony. These are the words they used. This is Herzl, Jabotinsky, Weizmann, and Ben Gurion. All those cats. Those are the top 4 founding Zionists. They said this is a settler colony. The indigenous population will resist because all indigenous populations do resist colonization. And therefore, we will have to fight with them for as long as they resist militarily, violently. This is what they said. The Iron Wall essay by Jabotinsky spells it out. But they all said it. And we will have to, of course, displace them, because how can there be a Jewish homeland with a bunch of Arabs there? And so if they resist, if the indigenous population resists that, we will have to fight them in perpetuity so long as they resist. And all that's happened ever since then is that the Palestinians never stopped resisting. And that's it. And so you have 100 years of war. Is that simple? It really is. I mean, war and segregation, but the segregation, the apartheid is part of the war, right? You have to, like in South Africa, it was basically a military operation to erect apartheid in South Africa. I mean, the army was literally involved in that, but you have to like physically separate people forcibly. And that's what it is. I mean, the IDF, patrols the West Bank, and they have military checkpoints throughout it, enforcing the apartheid. So it's part of the war. which the Zionists said at the outset, this is what will have to happen forever unless these people give up. I mean, it's that freaking simple, everybody. Like, what on earth? What on earth?
I think they won the debate, the Douglas Murray side, because Hassan and Gideon Levy overplayed their hand at first and already thought they'd won, because they had won like with some very simple literal arguments that refuted the question. And it, like, once you say that, and I think they were overconfident after that point, whereas Douglas Murray and Natasha were weaving emotional stories to convince the audience that they don't want to be on this side, that history will look back at them poorly, and that there's this overarching thing throughout all of history called anti-Semitism, and those are the bad people. And look, there's these ulterior motivations behind everything the people on the other side say. And it was an amazing piece of rhetoric. And like, again, it's not about being factually correct. It's about being emotionally compelling. And I think more people need to be aware of that dynamic, especially in a public forum. Like, that's what it's really all about. It's not about the truth. It's about feelings. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So the other remarkable thing about Douglas Murray, not Natasha, she didn't do this, but Douglas Murray's arguments, and he does this all the time, not just in this debate, he does it all the time on Israel. So Douglas Murray, you know, made his career in large part in opposing Black Lives Matter and identity politics, and especially sort of black victimhood, black victimology.
Yeah.
His arguments pretty much are identical to those of Ibram X. Kendi, just in regards to Jews.
Yeah. Which is crazy. Like,
the same argument.
And the Munk audience would have been hostile to those arguments 5 years ago if they were framed like in a political correctness debate or a immigration debate or a Black Lives Matter debate. And Douglas Murray was on the other side. Like, for some reason, this has been a total 180 in politics for both Douglas Murray and the audience.
Yeah. The argument was Jew hatred is eternal. He called it a shapeshifter. He says, what did he say? Hundreds of years ago, it was about the Jews not having a state. Now it's because they do have a state. Then it was about them being poor. Then it was about them being rich. Then it was about them being assimilated. Then about them being not assimilated. Then I'm like, that's totally what Ibram Kendi says about anti-Black racism. That's what Ta-Nehisi Coates says about Black racism, that it's eternal. It just takes different forms, but it's always the same hatred inside of it that explains all of these things. Everything from the pogroms in Ukraine that drove my family out in the 1880s, all the way to me now marching in San Francisco saying, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. It's the same. The people who attacked my family in Ukraine were driven by the same motivation that I had in yelling from Palestine, free Palestine. Like, it's the same Jew hatred. Like, it's just so absurd on the face of it. But if you take 1 second to think about it, and that was every argument Douglas Murray makes about Israel and Gaza in particular, it is wild. And dude loves, I'm not kidding you, you can see it, he loves killing those people. He does. That guy has really made his career on his anti-Muslim stuff about the end of Europe, the death of Europe, which is all just it's an anti-Islamic screed. And that's his main thing. And so, boy, I think that's really explains why he loves Israel so much. It's like he just loves the sharpest knife in the anti-Islamic toolkit. The one that cuts the most is Israel. They do more killing of Muslims than anybody. And now it's just a glorious bloodbath, I would imagine. If you hate Islam, all you're seeing in those kids, seriously, and that's what they think they do. And they're not totally wrong. They see them as future Hamas militants. So why not kill them now? They probably, I mean, I'm not kidding you, but you can see the glee. And in Douglas Murray, that guy is frightening. Very frightening. But the arguments are so pathetic. Dave Smith did a whole takedown, by the way, on part of the problem of Douglas Murray's arguments. It's about an hour. Dave does a great job. There's much more to say about it, but
We talked
the
about
arguments. It's like JLM, man. It's the same. It's the same identity politics arguments just for Jews. It's wild that they can do this, and no one's calling them hypocrites.
Yeah. Gavin McInnes, when he did the same debate on censored.tv, well, his debate on the Israel-Palestine thing, he immediately came out and said, look, I love Israel because I was in New York on 9/11, and ever since then, I've been a raging Islamophobe. And like exact words. And like he's just honest about his prejudice, and it's refreshing. Like, and he doesn't see his hatred as something disqualifying. Also, it's just
when Gavin was on my show, several years ago, I pressed him on his foreign policy positions at one point, and it was kind of great because he was just like, yeah, I don't really think about it much. I just know I want to go to war with them. You know, because I hate them. They suck, but I don't know anything. I don't know much, and I don't want to. You know, I had not much else to say about it. But he was honest about it, and I said, okay, cool. I let him go. Like you normally, of course, if you know my style, like I would challenge people on that. But no, I was just like, yeah, thank you, Ba 93211. Yeah, that was a highlight in unregistered history for sure. The Gavin McInnes interview conducted in a bar in Manhattan. That's one of the best parts of it.
All right, we got 23 minutes left, and we haven't talked about Assange.
Oh my God,
Assange is now free. Yeah.
So I actually have, when that happened, I had one of the feelings I had was just a touch of regret that I didn't contribute at all. I was thinking about it. I was really planning on having at least one or two guests on Unregistered to talk about Assange. Didn't happen, in part because of Gaza, by the way. Gaza pushed just everything aside. But anyway, it's gosh, mixed feelings. I mean, of course, fantastic that he's out. Really, really moving seeing him hug his wife. And but more importantly, it's really important for us. You and me, this show, everybody watching this, all the shows that do this kind of analysis, this kind of talking, critics of the security state, of U.S. foreign policy. You know, he was about to die for our sins. And the problem is, though, yeah, he's free, but he had to cop a plea deal. And I don't blame him at all. I would too. I'm sure I would have done it too. But that leaves all of us still on the hook. If somebody in the military, and I've had many, 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 many fans of my shows who were from the military, who became anti-war when they were in the army in Afghanistan or Iraq. You know, it's not like inconceivable that one of them could like send me some video of some atrocity happening. And guess what I now can't do? I can't do that. I can't release it. I would know that I would very likely go to prison for maybe forever. You know, because I would be violating the Espionage Act, apparently. So it's not a huge win, actually. Politically, it's a huge win for Julian Assange, and it's a huge win for the well, I should say it's a partial win for the movement that got him out. I mean, they wouldn't have happened at all without that movement, by the way. And don't downplay that. I mean, people really, I think he would have rotted in jail if not for the lots and lots of people all over the globe who were, you know, protesting for him nonstop. But yeah, you agree? It's not really a win for us.
Yeah. The plea deal still gives the legal standard that we can, you know, torture you and imprison you, and you'll still be found wrong and guilty forever, and we'll chase you down country to country if you oppose us.
Torture you. Solitary confinement.
Yeah.
They put him in solitary confinement in Belmarsh prison. Like, for what again? I mean, clearly torture. And the worst torture, by the way. That's the worst torture, I think.
And he's still, what is it? Freedom of Information Act. He can't use the Freedom of Information Act to find documents related to his trial, right? That's part of the plea deal, something like that. He can't access. He can't do Freedom of Information Act requests. He can't, what else?
There is no gag order, though. Right? That's what I've heard. There is no gag order.
There's no gag order. He could still be a journalist, but he
can speak about the case in any way he wants, I believe, is part of it. So that's really good. I was very relieved to hear that, because we need him to talk. I don't know if he's going to want to talk or be able to talk. I don't know how bad a shape he's in, but he looked good. He looked fine. We'll see. One of the, I think, important parts of the story that people are neglecting, and everyone should, I think about this, is the power of Russia-gate that's actually been underestimated. Julian Assange probably would have been out of prison years ago if not for Russia-gate. You will see, go look at the journalists who right now are sort of like, Julian Assange is a terrible man, but I guess we should have let him out. I guess for journalistic reasons, we should have let him out, but they always denounce him still. Those people, like liberals, they're establishment liberals. There's a couple of friends of mine who also take this position on him. So here's their story. Originally, they were pro-Assange. Liberal establishment people. Look at liberal establishment outlets before Russiagate. They were basically pro-Assange, basically pro-WikiLeaks, in part because they saw them as anti-Republican, right? Because most of the stuff was done against the Bush administration.
Yeah.
And that was before, people were in a froth about Russia. Russiagate happens, and they start to think that Assange was behind the Podesta email leak that embarrassed the DNC, and now he's buddies, and they find out that he's not anti-Putin and might even be friendly toward Putin. And then it was like over.
It was the first time that the word misinformation really got into the lexicon. Was all these DNC links are Russian misinformation, that Assange was a hero before, but now he's motivated by his own ego, and he's just getting bad information from the Russians, and he's a stooge now, and he's a bad actor, and we need to lock him up.
Yeah. And you'll see they turned on a dime when Russia against Assange. So that started in 2016, right? So right around then is when they became anti-Assange. So that's now 8 years. I mean, he would have been out. I'm sure he would have been out earlier, much earlier, if not for that. So Russiagate had a massive effect, negative effect, not just on his life, but on the movement for press freedom, which is what this is. This is just a part of the never-ending movement, global movement for press freedom, right? Journalists, good journalists, are always fighting this in some way or another, either like what we're doing now, speaking about it in public, or literally protesting or trying to draft laws or whatever it is. But this has been going on since there's been a press. There's been a fight between people who do journalism and the state. And that's what this is. This is just one of the larger skirmishes in that war. But it's not a victory for us. Fuck. I mean, damn it. He pled guilty to violating the Espionage Act, for God's sake. That's a World War I law. I mean, that is one of the worst, most authoritarian laws in American history. That was passed to squash dissent during World War I. That's what that law was written for. That's grotesque. And now we are all subject to it now. Now we can't publish anything from a whistleblower. We can't, without going to knowing that we will be violating the Espionage Act according to this court. Hopefully that'll get overturned in some way or another. I don't even know if it could. I don't know if a plea deal can't, right? Yeah. He could get pardoned, I suppose. I don't know who would. Maybe Trump. But I don't see Trump. Why would Trump do? There's nothing to gain from that.
No, Trump has always hated Assange also. He's always seen him as somebody who put troops in danger.
Right. Pompeo, I think, got in his ear. And Bolton. Oh, John Bolton. John Bolton wants to murder Assange. I mean,
Pompeo tried to murder him.
And I'm sorry, right, exactly. They both, yes, that's right. There was actually, there was Gray Zone and there was another outlet, both reported on this. There was a plan in Mike Pompeo's CIA to poison Julian Assange when he was in the Ecuadorian embassy in London. Which, people are like, what, are you kidding? It's like, look at the history of the CIA. That's like, the 99th poisoning attempt. They've, maybe more. This is what they've done since the 1950s, is poison people, or blow them up or whatever, push their car off a cliff. Yeah, they hate him because Trump, for whatever damn reason, had that little faction of super neocon hawks. At the same time, they had like America Firsters in his State Department. Like,
he never really had America Firsters in his State Department, though. Like,
well,
like he always ended up firing them. Like,
no, my friend Amanda Milius was in the State Department in the Trump administration. She's total America Firster, like hardcore. Like, I believe.
Was she in the State Department though? I thought she was all press.
Yeah. No. She was in the State Department. Yeah, she worked in the State Department. Yeah. I guess under Pompeo. I'm not sure exactly what. No, he was CIA. Who was State? I'm blank. Who was State? I forgot. Some bad person. But they were taking directions from Bolton and Pompeo for a long time. So, and then there was then they had the Marine generals who wanted to all bomb Iran immediately, McMaster and Mattis, because he liked the military. I sort of understood that Trump has a boner for the uniform, having gone to a military academy. People forget this or don't even know it. When he was at high school, his high school was a military academy in upstate New York, and ever since then, he's had a huge reverence for the men in uniform, and that's why I think he had those. And he loves the Marines in particular because he sees them as the toughest and all that stuff. So that I understood that, but then he moved Bolton and Pompeo in, and I just didn't know what was happening anymore, because he does, and like I think Stephen Miller, I think he's got sort of America First instincts on foreign policy, and he's Trump's main brain. I don't get
immigration. I'm not sure about foreign policy though.
Well, he's his main brain on everything. I mean, he's always been the intellectual of MAGA, or of Trump, I should say, the guiding intellectual of Trump. I don't know. There's definitely like America First instincts always in the Trump administration and in Trump himself, but then he would get these like super hawks to run things. I think it's just his innocence, his naivete, his ignorance about stuff, about foreign policy in particular. He operates on instincts and making deals, right? He thinks about foreign policy as making deals with individual leaders, like he did with North Korea, like he always talks about with Russia, and like he's been talking about with Israel, which is actually not bad. I mean, that's a big improvement. Like, I much prefer that to what, the Biden White House does, what Wilsonians have always done, which is basically just threaten with alliances. You build an alliance, right, with other nations, and essentially just threaten war through establishing a military alliance, and then operate from that position of power. Whereas Trump is just like, oh, there's a problem over here. Let me go talk to that Korean dude. Let me go hang out with Putin. And I'm not saying that's always going to work, but I do like that. That's a much better instinct. And that's a much more sort of isolationist, America First instinct way to go. Bolton's not into that. Right. I mean, that, like, his deal with North Korea, Bolton's been calling for bombing North Korea for decades.
Yeah.
So, and the stuff with Putin, my God, like Bolton hated Trump at first. Right. And then threw him under the bus later because he was too close to Putin.
Well,
and he was too soft on NATO.
I think Michael, in anticipation of the debate tonight, Michael Tracy showed some highlights of last election cycle's debates. And there's a telling moment where Trump accuses Biden of being a puppet stooge. A Putin stooge, and says nobody has been harder on Putin than me. And it's we're right at square one here. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Trump sent weapons to Ukraine before Biden did. I know Tracy loves to yell at me about this, and I was like, I know he was terrible on many things. He was terrible, but he just rhetorically he was different than any other president, in which he's opened the door for fundamental criticisms of major U.S. foreign policy, in particular in Europe, and in particular the doctrine of regime change and permanent occupations and all that. He's said things that are very threatening to the establishment that wants to do that. He really is not into the American empire. He's into the U.S. being powerful, big, strong military, probably roaming the seas, making sure trade routes are open, that kind of thing. But he doesn't want to be like occupying countries with brown people.
Yeah.
He's not into that.
I think for him to pose a substantial threat to the establishment and to the empire, he needs to articulate smarter criticisms of it. And he needs to be more deliberate in willing to promise the American people on those fronts. And I think Tracy's criticisms, if you believe in America first, are something that you have to contend with and needs to be a conversation happening within America first right now.
Well, this is where we need to hope and pray that the Libertarian Party's gambit in inviting Trump to speak at their convention in exchange for asking him to put someone in his cabinet, and he then said he would. He said he would pardon Ross Ulbricht, and he said he would put a libertarian somewhere high in his administration. I'm not sure in the cabinet, but somewhere high in the administration. Let's just hope that means it's someone in the foreign policy part of the White House, because that's the only thing that's going to happen. Trump is, he can be influenced. We've seen him, just as we were talking about. We've seen him change his mind on stuff, even on DACA. Like, what's her face, his daughter, like changed his mind on DACA. That was a big concession by him. So it can happen, and especially I'd say on foreign policy, I could really see him moving his opinions on foreign policy. I could even see Trump becoming fairly hard on Israel.
Yeah,
because he saw months ago, he said that thing, you guys need to wrap this up now. He's like, because no one in the White House is saying that. No one in the Republican Party, they're not saying that. They're saying go, 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 kill, kill, kill. And Trump's like, no, you gotta stop this. This is not good. This is not good for you. It's not good for us. He's savvy in that way. And he operates on sort of that cost benefit analysis, which is good. So I still think Trump is a clear preference in foreign policy over Biden. And they're about to debate in an hour?
In like 5 minutes or half hour. Sorry.
No, half hour. Yeah. Well, that'll be something. How much Adderall will have been consumed by those two?
There's going to be a 2-minute delay. So CNN can cut if Trump goes off script or if something terrible happens. There's going to be a mute button. So the candidates are not going to be allowed to talk over each other, and their microphones are going to literally be muted. So there's going to be no zingers and no talking over each other. And there's going to be no live audience. So you can't have any applause or boos to sway opinion. And also, I believe this isn't like an FEC elections committee actual debate. Like it's all entertainment. CNN. It's going to have 2 commercial breaks. So this is going to be the CNN presidential debate brought to you by Pfizer. Like you're literally going to get Lockheed Martin and insurance and Pfizer commercials in between the debate. And Applebee's. But yeah.
Wow.
I don't think anybody's looking forward to it, honestly. Like,
someone in the chat says it sounds lame AF. I agree. It's going to be just a lot of dead space, a lot of dead air, right? Because there's no audience. So it's going to be a lot of like just talking in a vacuum, and then and no talking over. And they've eliminated the crosstalk. So which can be annoying or can be very dramatic and interesting.
Yeah.
So it's a very sterilized. It's the most sterilized debate in history. Which God, I can't imagine why they would want to impose that. This debate. Why on earth would they want to make sure that there could be nothing chaotic going on whatsoever that could disrupt someone's train of thought? Anyway, good luck, Joe. Good luck, Joe. You piece of shit. All right.
Yeah.
We gotta go.
Yeah, we do.
Unregistered live, man. Come hang out. Let's go. We're gonna do pre-gaming. What?
I wanted to say one thing about Jamaal Bowman before we left, is that it might not just be AIPAC money that got him out. It might have been the fact that he pulled a fire alarm and is an idiot and nobody likes him.
Michael, we've got to go. We got to go right now. Yeah. And Russian just gave us money. We've got to go.
Finally.
We can't. Oh shit! Got to go. Shut it down. Shut it down. See ya.
No. I will make time for Putin money.
Ivan, who do you actually work for the State Department? You're trying to set us up. Nice, dude. Thanks, dude. No, that's awesome. Thank you very much. He says his best friend is Palestinian. Wow. So Russian Palestinian solidarity. There you go. To the Palestinians and Russians, I'll say this before we go, just because of that, because of Ivan. Over the last decade or so, well, Palestinians for longer than that, and Russians to some extent for longer. Certainly in recent memory, let's say that Russians and Palestinians have been the target of the largest racist smear campaigns that I have seen in just a long, long time. That, we forgot about what was happening to Russians. I mean, I remember after the war started in Ukraine, there was Russians getting yanked from like tennis tournaments, and they couldn't, and ballets and operas, and Russian books were being banned, and couldn't read Dostoevsky in places. And there was just this general racist sentiment against Russians in America, in Europe, especially, but sort of globally, that was just straight up racist. I mean, there was just no other explanation for it. And the same with Palestinians, the ways in which people talk about, especially Palestinian life, it's just obviously devalued. I mean, we just simply think about Palestinian life as worth a fraction, if anything, of everyone else's life. So, Ivan, thank you, man. I feel you. Solidarity. There we go. Unregistered live. Come hang out with us. We're going to do a little pre-gaming for the debate. Become a patron. Patreon.com/unregistered. Become a patron, even at the $5 level, and you come and hang out at our Zoom meeting after every Unreported. Right now, we go and chill, but tonight we're going to talk about the debate, whatever we want to talk about. It's fun. Michael, thank you very much, dude.
Yep, for sure.
Good audience tonight.
Thanks. Yeah, the Patreon link will also get you access to all of our bonus episodes, including the Max Blumenthal, Michael Tracy, Thaddeus Russell live panel at Icarus Fest, where those people hack it out exactly what we've been talking about all night.
That was truly a tremendous panel. Everybody, I really, really recommend that one. Amazing. Max Blumenthal, Michael Tracy, and I went at it with the audience too. There was kind of pretty fiery back and forth with the audience as well. Definitely worth it. So yeah, check that out. Go to patreon.com/unregistered for all that. All right, man.
Cool.
We out.
Yep.
Thanks.
We out.
Peace.
Bye.